Hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's broadcast from the Marin Symphony Orchestra. My guest this week is the longtime second oboe and English horn of the orchestra since the 90s, my friend and colleague, Laura Reynolds. Welcome, Laura. Good to see you.
Thank you, Alasdair. Wonderful to be here with you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, how are things with you these days? What have you been up to? What can you tell us?
I'm keeping seemingly more busy than ever, even though I'm not driving so many miles. In fact, about less than half the miles on my car than usual because of pandemic stay at home. Because of my administrative work at the conservatory, I've actually been putting in extra hours devising new online programming and how to execute those new plans for the pre-college. So it's keeping me busy.
We'll get to that part of your life in a minute, but let's take a little bit of a journey back in time and maybe give you the opportunity to tell us how you and the oboe and later on, presumably the English horn, got to know each other.
Well, my father was a band director at junior high and high school and eventually a college. And when I was coming up, he would bring, like 4 or 5 years old, he would bring different instruments home from the job. He never brought an oboe, I have to say. But, there's pictures of my brother and I as practically toddlers trying to make sounds on these things. And then he started us on each on the piano when we were in second grade. And then when it came to fourth grade, we lived in New York State and everyone picked their instruments in fourth grade. And he asked me what I wanted to play, and I said the flute, and he said no.
Did he give any reason? I'm speaking as a flutist, so my flute hackles just got slightly raised there.
Yeah. Well, the primary reason was because, according to his music education degree, no one with a tiny dip in the middle of their lip should play the flute because it would destroy the sound and you wouldn't get as pure a sound as would be competitive, right?
Really?
So he said that I should play the oboe. And I didn't know what an oboe was, so I just said okay. And there we have it. He gave me my first couple oboe lessons himself. And then, but he was a trombonist, by the way, not a reed player at all. And he then sent me to the principal in his high school band, who started giving me weekly private lessons. And she herself was studying with someone working on Broadway. So, like the lineage was there right from the beginning. I was getting pretty good training. And we were living on Long Island at the time, but shortly thereafter we moved upstate and I became a big fish in a very small pond and got a lot of exposure for playing the oboe as well as I did at a pretty early age. And then when I landed at Allstate Orchestra when I was a junior in high school, and it was like 4 or 5 days of just playing in the orchestra. That's when I was like, oh my gosh, imagine if I could do this for a living. Like, this would be incredible. I really want to do this. But I was sitting at the end of a 5-person section there, so I was dubious of my chances. But then the first person said they were going to medical school, and the second two said they were going to law school, and the fourth one was going to business school. I was the only one who had any idea of music school, so I thought, well, maybe I actually have a chance. And then that was the beginning of the end, I suppose, or the beginning of the beginning. And I went to music school, and then I got a master's, and then 3 months after graduation, I got a job with the Santa Rosa Symphony.
And that brought you out west.
Well,
When
actually,
did you come west? That's really the
yeah,
question.
for my graduate degree, I came to the San Francisco Conservatory to study with Bill Bennett, who was then the principal of the San Francisco Symphony. And that was on the recommendation of my teacher, Harry Sargis, at the University of Michigan, who said, you should go work with Bill Bennett. So I did.
And it stuck. You
And it
you
was amazing. And that was the best part of my conservatory experience was the extended exposure to Bill Bennett and his work as a principal oboist and going to hear him in concerts and going to his house for lessons up in the Castro district. And it was just such a great apprenticeship, you know, like right next to a real working musician. And then many years after I graduated, I won a 1 year position with the Virginia Symphony, second oboe and English horn. And when I came back from that, then I started getting called to sub at San Francisco Symphony, where then I found myself sitting in the section with Bill Bennett and like
Wow.
love, love, love. And next to Julie Jacobassi, who's also one of my mentors, I worked a
Right.
lot on English horn. I came to the English horn in undergraduate, actually. I just loved it. And I had done my undergraduate degree in winds. So I had a little bit of experience finally with the flute and the saxophone, clarinet, bassoon. And just like doubling on English horn was the easiest of all of those things. And I loved the sound of it. And I was able to purchase an instrument before I graduated. And so when I came out to San Francisco and there's Julie, this wonderful English horn player, I couldn't believe my lucky stars when I asked her if I could come and play excerpts for her and she said yes.
Yeah.
And then when I asked her if I could come back again to play more excerpts, she said yes. And this beautiful desk, as it happens, is Julie's desk. So when she retired, she asked me if I knew anybody who could use it. And I said, how about me?
That's amazing. Well, those are that's two influences, Bill Bennett and Julie Jacobassi. Of course, Bill was a good friend of mine. Julie still is, and so I know that you had this incredible um, uh, fount of knowledge, two of them really at your disposal.
Yeah.
As an English horn player, I mean, do you? This is an unfair question. I'm not going to ask you if you prefer one over the other because obviously you have a rich musical career playing in not just the Marin Symphony but other orchestras, including Santa Rosa Symphony, where you play primarily oboe. But do you have to get into a little bit of a different mindset when you play English horn, or do you love the fact that you're able to equally pursue both still at this stage of your career?
Yeah. Well, to be honest, I'm playing a lot less English horn now than I would say 5 years ago because I was second in oboe and English horn in the Santa Rosa Symphony too, up through 2014 when I got promoted to the principal chair. So when that happened, that left my only outlet for English horn is really Marin Symphony. So I look forward to it when it's scheduled there. And I would have to say, yes, I need to plan ahead. The reeds are a different ball game. They just they're not harder to make. They're just slightly different to make, and you can get in a rut where you do what works on oboe reeds, but doesn't really work on English horn reeds. So you have to like remind yourself of those things. But I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing that, and for me, I've always been it's been pretty easy to be a doubler of sorts. You know, not just with the double reeds. So I guess I just compartmentalize it. I don't have as hard a time as some people do. I have some oboe playing colleagues who fear the day the English horn comes across their desk because they just don't enjoy playing it. It's awkward. They don't like the sound, the blah, blah, blah. I never had that.
Now,
So,
clearly, I can tell that you absolutely adore playing English horn, and I adore listening to you playing English horn. And
thank
also, you have. Let's think about it. Some of the solos, the big solos in the English horn repertoire, are ones that just go straight to the heart. I mean, the Dvorak New World Symphony, the slow movement of the Ravel Piano Concerto, which has to be one of the most heavenly things ever written.
you. Yeah,
Don't you feel that?
I do feel that. I do feel that. And yeah, there was a several years there when the national auditions I were taking were only English horn. Like that's what I wanted to sit in that chair. But you
Now,
know, didn't work out.
but you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you have this other concurrent career at the San Francisco Conservatory. Tell us a little bit about your position there.
Well, ironically or coincidentally, when I came to the conservatory, I was on work study and I picked up a job in the pre-college division then as an assistant to the director of summer programs, of the summer camps. And that quickly morphed into, you know, like over the span of maybe 5 years, it quickly morphed into taking basically all the administrative duties off of that person's hands and let them do the artistic side. And they were much ahead of me. And in fact, shout out to Doris Fukawa, the executive director of the Crowd and Music Center, who hired me at the conservatory for that very first job, who took me under her wing, who trained me in all the things strings, because I work with a lot of string groups now. And and there I still am at the conservatory. You know, it's all her doing. But I've moved up over the years. I became the summer programs manager, where I was basically running all of the summer camps for the pre-college division. And then during the school year, I really wasn't doing much but preparing for the next summer camp. But then we morphed, the program moved to the new building, the priorities changed a little bit in the downtown area, the number of summer camps reduced, and the scope of the pre-college program itself went from an a la carte model. The idea was to go to comprehensive, where you take a whole, you know, 4 component course if you're a student there. And I got pulled in by the then director of the pre-college, Joni Gordon, to sit on that strategic planning committee and to implement this new comprehensive program. Meanwhile, I was also implementing the first online registration system for that department. So she just saw what I was doing with the summer programs, and she's like, we could use that skill set in the school year program too. Just let's shift your duties. So now I am the senior program manager for the pre-college and continuing education divisions, and I primarily oversee the online registration system, and I manage all the ensembles, large and small, and I do the scheduling for the students, like basically whatever could use my help in the moment.
That sounds like a lot of work in and of itself, but you add that to all of your various responsibilities, musical around the Bay Area. What do you do with your time off? Do you have any time off?
Well, believe it or not, I managed to do all of that stuff I'm considered a part-time employee at the conservatory, and it's been wonderful because I can shift those hours as needed for when a heavy performing week comes up, or, you know, like I've always enjoyed that flexibility at the conservatory. They value that I'm one of their alumni and that I'm doing a dual career, so they've been flexible that way, for which I'm greatly appreciative. But yeah, it's a juggling act to be sure. And in my free time, I'm usually either just, you know, laying down recuperating,
Yeah, I
uh,
can't blame you.
yeah, making reads. That
Of
takes up a lot of
course,
my free time.
but
And
that's
then,
not for fun.
well, you know, I'll tell you a story. It is frustrating at times making reads, but I was blessed to have a teacher very early on who said, learn to love making reads or quit the oboe right now. And I was like, what? Okay, I guess I'll think of this as my arts and crafts project, you know, and that has
Fair enough.
helped. And I make it fun by, you know, Imelda Marcos has how many pairs of shoes? I have, you know, 50 or so different colors of reed thread that I follow the seasons with the colors, and, you know, I do other things to make it entertaining. So
I
it's
was not expecting Imelda Marcos's name to make its way into this interview, but I'm very glad that it has. But you still haven't answered the question: is that what do you do when all of that is done and you have some time for yourselves?
go
What do you
outside.
do?
I
Go
go
outside.
outside, and we're so lucky in this area. There's infinite number of beautiful trails near, very close by. You know, within 20, in fact, 10 minutes drive from my house. There's a whole regional wilderness area called Wildcat Canyon, which is connected to Tilden. So during COVID times, it's been really pretty easy to get to a fairly unpopulated trail in short order, which has been a savior. And you know, so I look forward to the day where I can go back to the super most popular trails that I'm avoiding now because of too many people. But I've discovered some new amazing trails through the East Bay Mud Regional Parks. I got a little permit. You have to have a little permit to go on these trails, so they limit the people on the watershed. But amazing places I hadn't been, and I've been living here since 1989. You know, so it's great.
We're so lucky in California to have the kind of weather that we can, as we speak on March 1st, look out at a day that looks, yeah, if I want to go for a walk, I don't have to, dress for the Antarctic. It's really lovely. And I understand about the whole walking and being outside. I love that part of my day too. I have now regular early morning walks in the city that I just find is a good, just to be able to breathe the fresh air, and to have that mental space as well, just to do that. I find this very helpful.
And so much to see even when you're walking the neighborhood. Like I've been noticing people's gardens and how they shift over the seasons, and it's just amazing. The well,
Absolutely.
detail-oriented people play the oboe and make reeds, so we notice the tiny little plants that as we walk by.
That's well said indeed. Well, listen, Laura, it's so lovely to see you and to have the chance to chat with you, get to know you a little bit better. The only thing that will make me happier is to hear your beautiful oboe and English horn playing, and I know that that will, all good things come to those who wait, and have to wait a little bit longer. But I'm looking forward so much to the day that we get to be on the stage together again.
It will be a happy day indeed, and I know it's coming.
Absolutely. Well, take care of yourself in the meantime. Stay well, and thanks again
Thank you,
for
Alistair.
this chat. See you soon.
All right, bye bye.
Okay, bye.